Hi, this is Gurasi Singh, and you're listening to my Thick Accent podcast. In the ever evolving landscape of healthcare, there are individuals whose unwavering commitment and innovative spirit shine brightly. Our guest today, an esteemed healthcare professional and consultant, is undeniably one of them. With over 25 years of experience spanning various facets of the healthcare sector, his journey is nothing short of remarkable. Born in the heart of Mecca, Saudi Arabia, his life has been tapestry of diverse experiences. His parents' migration to Pakistan after the partition and later to Saudi Arabia forged his connection to two distinct cultures. In his rich cultural blend, he found the roots of his compassion and empathy, values that have become intrinsic to his persona. From his early years, he harbored aspirations of becoming a healer, inspired by his grandfather. However, life's twists and turns led him down an unexpected path. A pivotal moment arrived when General Electric GE, a global leader in medical equipment manufacturing, beckoned him in 2001, where he found himself transitioning to a role that resonated deeply with his passion for teaching and sharing knowledge. For over 2 decades, he crisscrossed continents, managed a region that encompassed employees from 80 different countries. This global exposure became a school of learning, enriching his perspectives and honing his skills. Join us in this episode as we delve into his journey, his unwavering commitment to empathy and education, and his unique vision for the future of healthcare. Please welcome Dr. Mahboub Siddiqui.
Thank you, Gurases, and I'm so humbled, so thankful for this intro.
Absolutely. Pleasure to have you. I am very excited for this conversation, and I would like to give our listener a little bit of background, like how we met. So I recently went to Toronto and I attended like the networking event, and I presented my podcast there, shared my podcast with the people, and Dr. Siddiqui was the one who just reached out to me and spoke to me and talked about the podcast and how he liked the vision and everything, and he would love to be a part of it. So glad to have you. Welcome to the podcast.
My pleasure again.
I want to start this episode by asking you some fun questions. So, first is, what's your go to breakfast?
So it depends. Great question. It depends on the day of the week,
Okay.
right? So, of course, working days. When I say working days, so from Monday to Friday.
Mhm.
Okay. So it's something very healthy, something very quick, and normally it's like some eggs with like protein, so healthy fats,
Okay.
olives, like just to start with. Yeah, and then I normally avoid bread, any kind of bread these days. But
Mhm.
but if I choose to, then I choose any multigrain, like sort of
Mhm.
one piece of that,
Okay.
feta cheese, along with these eggs. So that's
Okay.
about weekdays. On the weekends, since because it's family again, kids and all that. So we try to do a little bit of desi touch,
Okay.
right? And desi touch
Mhm.
means like typical, but in a healthier way. So, for example, like halwa puri sort of stuff.
Okay.
Okay,
Mhm.
or like people who know what we are talking about, like those parathas, but
Absolutely.
but but,
Yeah.
but again, like in a healthiest possible way.
Mhm.
So not using any regular oil, but what we do, we use either olive oil or avocado oil, and then
Mhm.
those chickpeas or chanas made
Yeah.
in a healthier way, and that's it. And of course, masala chai would always be there.
Of
Yeah,
course. Yeah.
yeah. So that's about the typical weekend and weekdays breakfast.
Okay. Well, I think it sounds everything is very healthy. So taking care of your health a lot. So that's great.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
So second is tell us about a favorite song or a dialogue or a movie and tell us why it's very significant to you.
That's a more harder one, because to be honest with you, it's been a while. I haven't watched any movies or TV as a whole. So I'm not a
Yeah.
Netflix person. I'm not a movie goer person, like who goes. But um, the last movie which I watched, with my wife and with one of my childhood friend, I don't know if you're familiar with, but it was The Return of Mola Jet.
Oh my God. Okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
it's like it was the remake of the typical Mola Jet, and people who are from Punjab,
Yeah.
they can relate it very well.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was the Return of Mola Jet Part Two, and that's what I watched. I don't remember exactly, but months ago it was in the theater.
I think you are referring to the one where the lead is Fawad Khan. Are you referring to
Fawad
that one,
Khan,
which recently
exactly.
is made in
Which
Pakistan? I know
made
that.
in
Yes.
Pakistan, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And surprisingly, the very first one I watched that during my stay in Pakistan when I was in medical school, and
Exactly. Yeah.
but it was made way before that time. But we had an opportunity to watch it, in one of the cinemas because
Okay.
it's one of the evergreen movies.
Mhm.
So yeah, that time it was Sultan Rahi, the cast, and
Yeah.
he's no more. But yeah, so this is the one with Fawad Khan and Mahira Khan.
Okay. So, lastly, if you had to teach one phrase in your native language, what would it be and what does it mean? I mean, I know you speak five different languages, but
Yeah,
whichever you want to choose and tell us about that.
so I would definitely go with Urdu or
Mhm.
Hindi, as people they say, and the phrase is Mayusi Guna hai.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay, Mayusi means disappointment,
Mhm.
right? And Guna means it's a sin.
Mhm.
So we don't have to be disappointed at any point of time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you could teleport back to a particular place from your home country for just a day, where would it be and what would you do?
Now, this is confusing for me. Home country means Saudi Arabia or
Yeah.
Pakistan?
I'll say Saudi Arabia.
Okay. That would be in Jeddah.
Mhm.
Jeddah means the bride of Red Sea.
Yep.
And I would be spending either day, night, or the whole day along the Red Sea.
So, Dr. Siddiqui, earlier when we were speaking, you have talked to me about the vision board that you have, where you mention your goals and things that you can remind yourself that you have to achieve in your life, or things you have achieved already in your life. So, tell me first of all, when was the first time you heard about vision board, and when did you start creating it?
Another great question. So it all started, in the last 1 year or so.
Okay.
I don't exactly remember when, but one, like, the I was discussing with you about the course. I did 1 year dedicated study,
Hmm.
which is about functional medicine, and it's about the
Okay.
coaching,
Hmm.
that how to be a good or how to be a functional medicine health coach,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So now we can discuss it later, that what is all about functional medicine health coaching. But since
Sure.
you asked me where did I find that concept, so in that course we had our own cohort,
Hmm.
and cohort means like a bunch of students attending, so it's a small group.
Hmm.
So in my group, one of the I would say there were excellent, or there are still, so excellent individuals
Hmm.
from all over the world, and one of these, so the cohort is already done,
Hmm.
it's finished, but we are in touch, as a
Okay.
group, and as fellow coaches, and her name is Beth. That's the concept which she introduced, that she put something on the wall which is called vision board,
Okay.
and that clicked to me at the very moment, in such a big way, that I started my own.
Hmm.
And again, thanks to her, thanks to this concept, that whatever you wanted to dream, or you just wanted to do,
Yeah.
so we put it as a priority on that board, and then it, wherever you spend most of your time, then you just keep it, so there is a visual effect most of the time, which will keep
Absolutely.
reminding you.
Yeah.
So it could be anywhere. It could be like a kitchen board, a refrigerator, where we mostly put our calendars and all that stuff. But
Hmm.
for me, it's in my office, it's just in my
Mm.
my own space where I come and I feel that, I have to be creative, and it just keeps reminding me. So that's all about the vision board.
Okay. So what's next on the timeline in terms of a vision board?
Okay, another great question. So timeline, simple answer, Grace, is to keep moving
Mm-hmm.
and to keep progressing. Because
Okay.
there is something I recently learned, again, from there are so many great people, great minds out there, that we should not wait for the perfection,
Hmm.
right?
Exactly.
So yeah, but maybe that was my older school of thought, that and maybe that's the humanistic approach, that we tend to be perfect
Mm-hmm.
to start anything, right?
Absolutely.
Or
Yeah.
to think about it, if you are a kind of perfectionist. But as you asked me, what's the next? So next is keep moving,
Mm-hmm.
progressing, because progression is the thing which you are doing right now. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm talking to you and we are moving. Time is moving, basically. So because time is like the moving constant, that
Absolutely.
should be the progress as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so without knowing so much, or without thinking too much about the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do have my dreams like anybody else have, and that a dream is, to be a health coach, or to be a healer, or a, provider of anything good
Mm-hmm.
in my way, in my surroundings. It could be my friends, my family, my neighborhood, like extended network. So
Mm-hmm.
progression is
Mm-hmm.
going on, and I'm not waiting for the perfection.
Absolutely. And I would like to highlight two things you mentioned. First is definitely, perfection is the enemy of the good. And I think if I would have not followed that, I would have never started this podcast. I waited for the perfect microphone or the perfect guests or the perfect softwares and the perfect timing. I might have not started this podcast, and I'm glad I did. And now it's more than 1 year. And the second thing you said is, it's important to live in the present rather to think so much about the future or even dwell so much in the past. It's not going to serve you any purpose. It's important to live in the present and prepare for the future, how much, whatsoever you can. So I love these two things. Thank you for sharing these. So I want to go back, start from the start. So after the partition, 1951, you were telling me your parents moved to Pakistan, and from there that was like their first immigration. That so to say they did, and then later they moved to Saudi Arabia, and
Yeah.
that's where you were born. And I believe you were born in 1970s sometime.
Yeah, so it was 1971.
Yeah, so you were born in Mecca. Tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about your formative years and what was it like just growing up there.
Almost like 50 years ago, and
Yeah.
I remember, like the hot weather, right? I
Of
always
course.
remember, and then I don't know if it was you or somebody else the other day when we discussed that as a joke, when we talk about
Hmm.
that how many weathers are in Saudi Arabia or in Middle East,
Yeah.
that we used to say there are only two weathers.
Hmm.
One is summer and the other one is hell,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So so
Yeah.
so it was, like a childhood with my, all great and loving siblings. I'm sixth in the order out of
Okay.
seven siblings,
Okay.
and I would say thanks to God, they are all spread around now globally,
Okay.
from Australia to US, and then Middle East, Canada, UK.
Hmm.
Yeah, so all the vivid memories of the childhood, they are
Hmm.
about family. They are, about loving parents. And yeah, one thing I would say, because now I reconnected to that,
Yeah.
that we have a huge house. Huge house means like a big place to live and then to play in my early childhood.
Hmm.
And like I used to see so many visitors. Visitor means, like
Mm.
internationally. And
Yeah.
it's good to, mention why, because
Hmm.
as you mentioned in the intro, Grace, is that I was born in Makkah, and and then we were living in that region, which is close to the Red Sea. So
Yeah.
Jeddah and Makkah, they are very
Exactly. Yeah.
close cities, right? So Jeddah was the port of entry
Mm-hmm.
for all the pilgrims and all the pilgrims who come to perform either Hajj or Umrah
Yeah.
every year. So that was the port of entry, and that's the reason that people from family, friends of friends, out of family, they used to come year around to our home.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I grew up, seeing my parents, my
Mm-hmm.
mother, my dad, to serving those people.
Mm-hmm.
A little example, like people, they used to come through ship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Huge ships. So they used to come like from India, from Pakistan, from Bangladesh, from Indonesia, from
Mm-hmm.
Egypt, right?
Okay.
So when they used to come, and again, it looks to me like yesterday, we used to go with our father, with our dad,
Mm-hmm.
who would be much younger than me at
Yeah.
that time. And, they used to serve those pilgrims.
Mm-hmm.
They used to serve with water, with food, which my mom, she used to prepare at home.
Mm-hmm.
So there were no big kitchens, there were no modern commercial kitchens at that time. All right. And I'm still surprised at how she could have managed the massive amount of cooking for more than 50 or 100 people back then. And
Yeah.
we were just kids, we were just
Yeah.
kids. So that's the, I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit lost. I went into, that past, that what did you actually ask me? But yeah, so that's all the vivid memories
Mm-hmm.
of my childhood, you know. So a loving family with siblings playing around. We used to play soccer a lot because soccer was the only sports,
Mm-hmm.
we call it football,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
soccer, so like in our neighborhood with the friends and
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, so and then going to school
Mm-hmm.
with all my siblings because I was the youngest one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so these are the early memories.
Okay. And
Yeah.
you definitely answered my questions. It didn't go anywhere. That's exactly what I wanted to know about your growing up years. But also
Okay.
tell me, since I also mentioned earlier, and you also told me that your mother was from the Indian side of Punjab, and your father
Yeah.
was, your family grandfather was from Delhi, and then they moved to
Yes.
Islamabad from
Yeah.
Pakistan, and then Saudi Arabia. So you have, I'm sure there would be something in your growing up years because you have grown up in this like a cultural blend, right? People from India, Pakistan, and down to Saudi Arabia. Maybe like of course, like the religion might be the similar, but tell me, like, how was it in that sense? Like the cultural blend that you grew up in and how that has shaped you.
Oh, wow, wow, wow! It's such a, again, beautiful question, and um, you have really touched to the the core of what I believe, what I'm today.
Hmm. Yeah,
Or how the history or the time shaped me. It's all about culture. it's,
absolutely.
it's all about like multiculturalism, multilingualism, and then like so in Saudi Arabia, and again Jeddah, because of pilgrims, they are coming from around the world, right?
Yeah.
So okay, necessarily around the world, when I say mostly from all the countries, like 56, like Muslim countries, when they come and
Hmm.
they do this pilgrim, right?
Pilgrim. Yeah.
Now that's another way of or this is another beautiful aspect of that people from different cultures, from different languages, from different backgrounds,
Yeah.
sometimes they don't speak those languages, right?
Hmm.
And we are, but what's the one commonality? The commonality is like that dress. The dress means like the two white sheets which everybody
Absolutely.
they just use it, and
Hmm.
then they even don't know their languages,
Hmm.
right? And they use the hand languages, they use the universal language of love, or what I say, the empathy, or the listening, like I'm telling you the example of port, the seaport, where there used to be, ships coming, right?
Yeah.
And then people from India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Egypt, Sudan,
Hmm.
right? That's what I can recall, I can remember. All sort of colors, all sort of people, and not speaking languages of each other. But then what was the common language? The common language was the purpose of serving. That was the common.
Humanity, I would say.
Humanity, you have
Yeah,
rightly put the right word. So
yeah,
humanity, humility, and then only the purpose of serving was, they are the guest of God. They
love
are the
that.
pilgrim. So
Yeah,
let's do that. So that's number one. Number two, you know then it comes when you grow, when you like, when you were brought up in that situation, it's the multilingualism, right?
yeah.
So I started learning Arabic, although
Mhm.
Arabic was not first language, but again, thanks to Saudi Arabia,
Saudi
thanks
Arabia.
to, that my surrounding, that we started speaking Arabic,
Mhm.
as the street language, or whatever, because
Absolutely,
we are
yeah.
going outside. And then, of course, since we were in the schools, we started learning English. We were starting, we used to talk in our own mother tongue, which was Urdu, and then Punjabi, whatsoever. And then
Yeah.
I remember I was telling you or somebody else that my dad, my granddad, they used to speak Persian.
Okay.
Yeah, because Persian in that time, back, like uh, in subcontinent, Persian was one of the literary languages in
Okay.
which they used to speak, right? So
Farsi. Yeah.
Farsi, exactly. And
Exactly.
then we talk about when they talk about the books by Sheikh Sadi, like Hikayat and Bostan Sadi and all those things.
Mhm.
So
Even Rumi.
again, yeah, yeah. So and Rumi, right?
Yeah.
And then our very own Allama, Sir Iqbal, who was one of the biggest poets of that subcontinent. So anyway,
Absolutely.
coming back to your point, it was, exposure to multiculturalism, and then of course with cultures, food comes along, right?
100%.
And then, there was like an opportunity to taste or to know about different foods,
Mhm.
foods of Arabia, foods of subcontinent, the foods of different African, sub-Saharan, Middle Eastern, Far Eastern,
Mhm.
all those foods. Luckily, when I got started my schooling, Guru said, so it was, like
Mhm.
it was the international school.
Mhm.
Most of the international students at that, I'm talking about early or late 70s,
Mhm.
Saudi Arabia, there were expats coming, they were still coming. And the oil boom, the so-called oil boom, it was still yet to start.
Mhm.
So like diplomats, like, again, people around the world, skilled workers,
Mhm.
like accountants, doctors, engineers, and teachers from around the world. And then they thought there should be a good schools
Mhm.
for their own kids. And I remember, like, my dad, he was one of the pioneers, again, with rest of the, community back then, who started, again, because they thought about community, they thought
Mhm.
about extended. So their vision was, again, not only for their kids, their vision was, for the generations to come.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
again, the collective level of community. My friends, they are from different Arab countries, from Sri Lanka, from, Bangladesh, from India at that time. And of course, the locals.
Mhm.
So this is how I grew up, and this is how the language, culture, food, it was instilled in us, or in me.
And what is something from all these growing up years, something from your culture, tradition, that you have managed to preserve up until today when you are a father and you have children?
I'm just, overwhelmed with this question again. Just trying to be as precise and as possible. It's the equality, it's the equity, it's the service.
Mhm.
Simply serving people, humanity.
Mhm.
Regardless of the race, origin,
Yeah.
ethnicity, anything, just one bigger picture, which is about serving people in any way.
I just want to go back to your time again in Mecca. And I think from there, it was Jeddah where you went for your high school, I believe, right?
Exactly.
And I remember you were telling me that you were like a very shy kid growing up, but then eventually you got into debates and you became like an extrovert, or you might be an extrovert, but it was hidden in you somewhere. But and the reason behind that was you said it was your environment that boosted you, your teachers and your peers, then basically the kind of environment you grew up in. And that's where the conversation regarding the characteristics, the personality traits came up, right?
Yeah.
And I remember you were sharing that people usually have the like 24 characteristics. People end up choosing 3 or 4 as their signature personality traits. So I want to talk a little bit more about that, and also like how you evolved as a person growing up.
Right. So yeah. So back in school, and until high school, I would say until the grade of or the year eighth or ninth.
Okay.
So I was like very much shy. If any teacher, anybody wanted to ask me to stand up, I like those typical schools, and then say anything in front of them. I still remember that from inside my legs they used to shake.
Okay.
So maybe if it was not a visual shaking, but from inside, I used to shake from top to down.
Hmm.
Just
Yeah.
just not going to the stage, but just even just to stand up on my own
Okay.
place, or the desk as we used to call. So I was good in studies,
Hmm.
a typical good child, who is not into fights or anything. Very first time I started doing a debate, or like,
Extempore.
yeah, exactly, the extempore competition. It was very bad. I mean, I would say I don't even want to remember that, but as bad as could be. And those feelings when you want to forget about that event, that I
Hmm.
wish that couldn't happen,
Hmm.
right? But thanks to the that teacher, he's not alive anymore, but I always pray for his that he should rest in peace forever. And then so he encouraged me, and he said, no, you can do that. And he practiced, at that time, I'm talking about early 80s now, that
Okay.
he asked. We didn't know anything about the body language, about
Hmm.
whatever, but he said, so debating stuff, that how to present yourself and how to memorize. Yeah, first of all, it was the memorization.
Hmm.
I'm trying to remember the exact words. It was not a debating concept. It was like they give you one topic, and then you had 5 minutes. You just have to speak about it, either in Urdu, which was my mother tongue, or it was in English later on,
Okay.
right? So this is how it all started. Gradually, the confidence, it started coming to, or like, so we were able now to speak. At the very same time, one of my literary teachers, I wrote down something. I used to do some journaling. To all of a sudden, it happened to be in a rhythm. He was the main inspiration for me, and I thought he was the safest space for me. So I shared that with him, even sharing it with my dad, or with my mom, or anybody else. He liked it. He encouraged me to keep doing it, and that, I would say, that momentum is still going on. That
Hmm.
I used to write down poems. So this is all I remember from that part. Coming back to the character strength things,
Yeah.
I had no idea until, I would say, an year ago, when I started learning again the coaching, or the functional medicine health coaching.
Yeah.
And one of the earlier modules was how to rediscover, or how to discover your own character strengths. Now, in the beginning, it looked like to me, there are hundreds of people out there on social media who talk about discover yourself and this and that. But then, since it was like an assignment for me,
Hmm.
by the way, there is like, it's a free resource, and that's why I'm sharing it. We call it VIA,
Okay.
VIA Institute. And then what you can do, it says VIA Character Strengths Profile. Anybody can go, and this resource is basically a product of more than, I would say, 20 years, as
Okay.
much as I remember, it's surrounded by discovering all the humans living today or in the past or in the future, that all of them, they have 24 characters or 24 strengths.
Hmm.
Now, one thing which has to be, mentioned here, they don't talk about the weaknesses.
Okay.
When we discussed earlier that being an introvert and being an extrovert is not something bad, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Introverts, they are as good as extroverts. Leaders are as good as followers. The prudent people, they are
Yeah.
as good as bold and, like the people who don't think and they're just them. It's all about the
Yeah.
character strengths, right?
Absolutely.
Me, you, anybody who is listening to this, anybody, who would like to know, they have this 24. But our upbringing, our education, our trainings, environmental exposures,
Yeah.
all those things, good and bad experiences, they bring those five, I would say, signature strengths or the main character strengths which then shape yourself.
Hmm.
And then you start using them without knowing them that you have them. The rest of the 20, they go into the background. They are like an app in your smartphone that you are not using them, but in the background they are still running. And thanks, to this research and to this end, that it's the first way of self discovery. You go and then you discover your five topmost or 10 topmost
Hmm.
character strengths, and then you reflect upon them. One of my top five strengths, one of them
Hmm.
is love of learning.
Okay. I mean, it
Okay.
shows clearly.
I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know about
Yeah.
it. Absolutely. Okay. But I was always eager to learn, which led to another character strength, which is curiosity.
Hmm.
Right? You have heard this proverb that curiosity kills the cat.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? So it was the curiosity, love of learning. I'm open to share mine. So like honesty, integrity, kindness, creativity, humor, love of learning. So these are all my five, six, or seven, in the
Hmm.
top. But I didn't know them. But now I understand that why in the very beginning of my clinical career, when
Hmm.
I was working as a radiologist behind the dark screens, behind the closed doors, I was not happy. It was not a fulfilling work for me. It's not about money, more a kind of satisfaction to me, to myself.
Yeah.
When I come in the evening, I should not be stressed out. I should not be drained out.
Yeah.
This is one thing. And secondly, when I wake up in the morning, I should wake up with another exciting day, which is ahead of my
Looking
life.
forward to. Yeah.
That
Hmm.
was not there. It was just like, a routine work, a routine job. But I spent 10 years in becoming a trained radiologist. Could not realize at that time that why I'm not enjoying that job.
Yeah.
And then I started working with world global company
Yeah.
GE, General Electric
Exactly.
Healthcare,
Yeah.
and it was about clinical education, the connection with people.
Hmm.
And then I used to wake up every day energized. I used to wake up every day with a purpose that I have to meet new people, tell them something new, or learn something new.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that was the whole drive. Like 2 decades, more than 21 years. So GE Healthcare, which shaped me, which groomed me, whatever I'm today. And again, with that particular love of learning and curiosity, we kept learning. We
Hmm.
kept evolving. Now, during those 20 years, still there was something which was telling me it was not satisfying me to my core. It was telling me to do something extra to serve people and humanity.
So before we get into that, I just wanna highlight like few things that you have mentioned. Obviously, the dream career that you got into, and I think that's like everybody's dream to do something that they love doing rather than doing it for survival or just for money. And then obviously, the personalities that you have highlighted, this is something that we all go through daily basis in our life, but we never like really paid attention to that. So that's something I think our listeners has also been trusted to know about that, and I'll put the link to that in the show notes as well. since, I have heard you talking so passionately about the care, the empathy of people, and that was something which was in your blood, right? And that's where, you decided to get into the similar industry because of your grandfather. So I want to tell our listeners briefly about that also, and the connection with the Hamdard Dawakhana. That's how you say it, I believe, right? So tell us about that as well.
We are going back again. So my grandfather, he was the herbalist. In our language, we call them Hakim.
Hakeem,
Or
yeah.
Hakim means, like the herbalist
The physician, so to say.
yeah. So they were not the conventional allopathic physicians.
Yeah.
They were the herbal or natural. I would say now the naturopathic physician.
Even Ayurvedic, you can say.
I read it, yeah. So in terms in India, it's just so popular. It's still, like in Pakistan, we do have like Hakims and all, and I'm so proud of it. He was attached to that Hamdard Dawakhana, which is
Okay.
then we had it in Pakistan, and then we had it in India. I believe that they have it. They started using those products on a commercial level back then for common colds, for cough and for this and for that. We were in Saudi Arabia, and my granddad, he had his own practice in Pakistan. He was in Karachi. There was a brief period of time when he came to Saudi Arabia and he lived with us. I remember as a child, like, there were people from neighborhood, from our extended family, and from visitors who used to come sit with him. And as a Hakim, he used to feel their
Pulse.
pulse, and then he used to say hundred of things about them, like what disease you are going through, and I can go on and on and on. He used to talk about intermittent fasting. He used to talk about healthy eating. He used to talk
Mhm.
about rubbing your feet with certain oils before going to bed. All these memories, they were here, or they are
Mhm.
still here. Since we were living in a modern time, I used to remember he said to my father, my dad, that you should, out of your, 7 kids, encourage somebody to become a modern day physician. So he was a visionary. My dad was a visionary. From the very beginning in my childhood, I had nothing else in my mind
Mhm.
other than that I have to become a doctor, serve people. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Now that's very interesting, to just follow one of the things that your grandfather said and just doing that. It's just amazing to just hear all that. And so after obviously like 6 years later, you even went to UK for some time, and then you came back to
Yes,
Saudi
yes,
Arabia. You worked radiologist, and then obviously, like I mentioned in my intro as well, the General Electric came into picture, and who are in the manufacturing of medical equipments.
right.
And that's how you started working with them, and you started working for them like in 2001, and you worked for like 21,
20
20
years.
plus years or so. And you were working there as a clinical education specialist. You were training radiologist. You were training by, like you told me, like,
Yeah,
training by radiologist to the radiologist. And then since you
for
love
the
that
radiologist. Yeah, yeah,
for the
yeah,
radiologist, right?
yeah.
And you love that teaching and whole process, and you said that that was one of your learning experiences. That was like a school of learning, and you really learned a lot from them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
And then obviously beyond that, your responsibility moved out of Gulf to the Middle East, to North Africa, and you were managing like a region which had employees over 80 countries, like I mentioned earlier. And there was something you mentioned to me which was called the MECAT, which is the Middle
Yeah.
East
East Central
Africa,
Asia and Turkey.
Central Asia,
Yeah,
Turkey, and Russia. And that also, you said, it helped you grow. It was your school. And then meanwhile you also did your masters, in the business administration and healthcare management. I want to tell us like briefly about that. I mean, I know it's like a big question to kind of crux your 20 years in like few lines, but tell us like your overall experience, like, working in those 80 countries, interacting with people from all around the world, that region. How was that experience like for you?
so now childhood is gone, education is done. You have to somehow accidentally landed in a position, typical clinical work, and now I'm in a position to teach. As I said, I started from the smaller geographical location, which was, one country, and
Hmm.
then with the passage of time, the circle of work, it was growing, growing, and then it became global. So global means 7 continents, or if you exclude Antarctica, 6 continents, Australia, New Zealand to ASEAN, Japan, Middle East, Africa, Europe, North America, South America, whatever. The continued journey of traveling, meeting again people from, or customers, I would say at that time, from different cultures. And again, learning about new cultures,
Mm-hmm.
about other perspectives. You put yourself into their shoes. So it was not only culture, it was about religion, it was about faith, it was about
Hmm.
food,
Integrity, even.
integrity, it was about transparency, it was about something which is so normal for one culture and
Hmm.
which is so much taboo or forbidden for another culture.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Can you
So
give us like an example? What did you mean by that?
yeah, a very top of my mind. So like being born and brought up again in Saudi Arabia,
Mm-hmm.
so again it's a cultural thing. It's all about body language, without any
Yeah.
offense, that when we talk to women,
Mm-hmm.
or when they talk to us back then, they are not supposed to look into their eyes.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's out of respect. Start from the home. When I'm talking to my dad, when I'm talking to my mom, I'm not supposed to look into their eyes.
Okay.
Okay, that's as a child, as a kid. But as an adult, as a responsible professional, whatever, when I talk to my fellow female colleagues, like we are all professionals, we are doctors, or to my patients, I'm not supposed to stare into their eyes and talk to them.
Got it.
It doesn't mean that I'm not listening to them or I'm
Mm-hmm.
not attentive to them. It's again out of the respect. All of a sudden, you come to West. This thing considered to be, which implicates or which tells you that you are not confident enough, or
Yes.
you
Yeah.
are avoiding things, you are hiding things. If you are not maintaining a certain distance, you are a bit conservative. We are in Japan, we are in China. There is something which we call like the contextual culture. You talk very briefly in between the lines, and then you think that the opposite person or your listener, he or should understand everything. There is nothing wrong, there is nothing right. The only right or wrong thing is to understand each other's space, understand each other's culture,
Mm-hmm.
each other's norms, and and then to accept it. The bottom line is try to understand and learn cultures. And we are living in this global universe, I would say,
Yeah.
more connected as ever before. And don't be
Yeah.
judgmental. Don't
Yeah.
judge anybody else in front of
Mm-hmm.
you or behind you, with their actions. Don't judge.
Yeah.
As as we say that we cannot judge a book with its titles, right?
Yeah.
Unless you read it.
Yeah.
So we are all humans. We are all, have pages and pages of, our own stories. So just be mindful, be present, don't be judgmental, and
Yeah.
respect each other.
No, I love that. And definitely, this is something I think we all should learn not to jump to conclusions and give people benefit of the doubt and just have a conversation with them if it's possible, or if not, let them be. You never know what kind of situation they are coming from. But Dr. Siddiqui, I think I'm gonna cut this conversation here short, and we might do like a second part to this, where I would like to unfold your Canadian journey a little more and how the pandemic kind of led you to start your own consulting business. So for now, thank you so much for being on the podcast and adding value to my listeners. Thank you.
All pleasure is mine, and thanks for having me, Gracias.
Hey listener, thank you for making it to the end. I highly appreciate you listening the podcast. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't as yet, and please share with your friends or anybody you think would like it. And like I always say, we encourage you to follow your heart, but also us on Instagram. The handle is mythicaccent. You can also leave us a review or write to us at hello@mythicaccent.com. So stay tuned and let's continue knowing each other beneath the accent.